A couple of years ago, I received an invitation from a business client. I'm working as a trainer for Franklin Covey. Maybe you heard of the founder, Stephen R. Covey. He's the author of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Who's familiar with that book? Oh, wow. You can imagine that it's a privilege for me to help people and organizations with their personal and leadership development. But this time, they did not ask me to do a training with 12 people. They asked me to deliver a keynote at an annual meeting at 800 of their employees. At first, it seemed like a good idea, sharing our knowledge to so many. But looking back now, everything that could go wrong went terribly wrong. First of all, what do you do when you need to prep for a presentation? Yes, I opened up PowerPoint. We've all been there, right? Never-ending presentations, slides full of information, the well-known death by PowerPoint. Well, I stepped in the same pitfall, creating 84 slides for a 40-minute presentation. Like, what? 84 slides? But back then, it seemed like a good idea, using it as a cheat sheet while doing the presentation. And even though I asked to put some front screens at the front of the stage, when I arrived at the venue, there weren't any front stage screens. Instead, in order for me to see the slides, I need to turn my back to the audience and look to the backdrop. While I was waiting backstage, all of a sudden, a nerve-wracking anxiety popped up. Believe me, I tried multiple things. I tried walking around, I tried listening to some music, I tried even some meditation, but that did not help at all. My nerves took over control. I remember it was so hot backstage that I wanted to undress my jacket, but I had these big circles of sweat, so I couldn't. Oh, minutes felt like hours, and I thoroughly wished I had this magical cloak from Harry Potter so I could disappear. If it not could get any worse, 5 minutes before the presentation started, the producer came to me and said, "Glenn, we've got a problem. Due to some delay in previous presentations, we have a time schedule problem. And you're the last speaker, and afterwards we go to dinner, but dinner cannot wait. So could you do your 40-minute talk into 20 minutes? What, 20 minutes? I did not prepare for that. And what about those 84 slides? I cannot change them around anymore. And 2 minutes later, he stands next to me again, saying, "Glenn, are you ready now? Let's go." And I can remember I was walking near the stage and already heard the presenter sharing my name. And all of a sudden, I thought I was getting sick. And while I moved through the curtains and I saw this big room with 800 people, Would you like to know how the story ends? Yes. Yes? Well, maybe I will come back to that at the end of this talk. But what I want to bring across right now is that specific day opened up my eyes. All of a sudden, I saw everywhere people stressing for the fear of public speaking. Colleagues with never-ending presentations. I saw salesmen that became billboards full of information, and an executive that does not know how to bring his vision across stage. In today's world, the attention span of an adult is depleting rapidly, and the inability to engage or persuade an audience is one of the biggest hidden costs. So I was thinking, how are the best public speakers of the Netherlands coping with this? Do they have a fear for public speaking? Could we learn from them? But if I would just send them a personal message or call them, I believe the chances were very low that they would spend an afternoon or evening with me. So that's where the idea was born. What if I could create a professional podcast? A podcast where we would crush the fear of public speaking and learn how to speak with more impact. Maybe then they would say yes. And fortunately, almost everyone I asked said yes to the proposal. And in the past 1.5 years, I interviewed over 50 experts in the fields of public speaking. You know the good news? It's a learnable skill. Everyone has the potential to inspire and engage an audience just like a good movie. And you know what all the great speakers have in common? They practice the skill of connection, and they connect on 3 different levels. They connect with themselves, they connect with the audience, and they connect with their message. And after this talk, you will know how to connect on these 3 levels, so your presentations will be more easy, more fun, and more interesting. Let's start with that first one. How to connect with yourself. Because the most difficult thing communicating on stage is not with the audience, it's with that internal voice in your head. That internal voice in your head that's saying, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm definitely not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. You have these voices, I have these voices as well, right here, right now. And we have a saying, where focus goes, energy flows. So if I would focus on that voice right now, then yes, I can hear it. He's like shouting, Glenn, you're standing on the stage again. And now I see you looking at me. Don't look at me. What did I wanted to say? Glenn, don't black out. Don't black out. Oh, no, this is a bad suggestion. No, don't black out. Beep. Where focus goes, energy flows, right? So if I would focus on that voice, then probably the bad suggestion would become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what should we do with that voice then? Bad presentation workshops say that we need to get rid of that voice. Dear friends, I think we're not able to. A best practice for a lot of speakers is try to become friends with that voice. Not neglect it, but try to accept it. Hey voice, I hear you, and it's okay. You will experience the feeling of relaxation from the moment we try to accept that internal voice. But if we neglect it, or even worse, try to push it away, it becomes this skippy ball that pops up eventually, probably at a moment we don't want it to. So let's shake hands with that voice and say, hey voice, good that you're here, but there's your chair, thank you very much. I interviewed Pascelle Vergoossen. And Pascelle Vergoossen is a persuasion expert. She did a lot of research in order how to be persuasive. And you know, relaxation is the #1 skill in order to be persuasive. But what we see around us is that people stress out and they step in these pitfalls, these primitive reactions such as fight, flight, or freeze. Together, let's take a deep breath in. And relax. And let's slow down in order to speed up. And that brings us to the second level of connection. How to connect with the audience. And that's where a lot of people get the fear of public speaking, right? They don't feel that anxiety when they talk one-on-one. But in a group, and experts Koos Wolkens and Janet Burghardt shared with me it's all about connection as well. And they study public speaking through the lens of relational presence, which basically means the ability to connect with one person at a time. And this really feels like an open door. One person at a time? But don't misunderstand me. Common knowledge is often not common practice. If I would only need to connect with one person at a time, that means that it doesn't matter if I'm with 1, with 10, with 100 or 800 people. And the first time I met Koos and Janet, I realized that they were connecting with me in a different way. I felt an openness, a curiosity, a feeling of equality, a mutual respect. It was quite refreshing, actually. When I practiced this, the ability to connect with one person at a time, the results were quite magical. Because I realized it's also, in a way, of non-verbal listening. And I thought that if we look to our daily life, normally we don't listen in order to bring the best in ourselves or each other. We listen with the intent to reply. We listen from our own frame of reference. We listen because probably we neglect that little voice in our heads that wants to be heard. You know what's the best thing about this skill? We have these things in our head that's called mirror neurons, which means that if I thoroughly connect with one person at a time, the rest of the audience will feel that as well. And that's what I want you to remember. Connect with one, but engage with everyone. Okay, I realized that we did not share anything yet, right? But we did two very important things. We connected with ourselves and we connected with the audience. But how can we connect to our message then? What does it mean to connect with your message? Well, it means that you really believe what you're sharing and you're sharing it with passion and purpose. I really love this quote. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And if I can be very honest with you, preparing this specific TED Talk was quite a struggle for me. Because I was thinking about that theme question of tonight. What really drives you? What really drives me? That's a difficult question to answer, right? But I think taking some time to thoroughly find your own answer or doing some soul searching really can help to elevate the power in your message. Because if you don't know what's really important, then everything seems important, right? You know what all great speakers, such as Remco Klaassen, Jos Burgers, Jan van Zetten, or Jitske Kramer have in common? They transform information into stories. All great speakers are great storytellers. Remember that time back in the days when we were a kid and our mom and dad shared a bedtime story. We were hypnotized. And while we leaned forward, we really wanted to know how the story ends. Well, interesting enough, the way we like to get informed and persuaded is not very differently now we're grown-ups. So, what is a story then, right? Well, every story has either a conflict or a challenge. Remember Frodo Baggins, who becomes ring barrier and needs to destroy the ring in Mount Doom, right? Or Luke Skywalker, who wants to become a Jedi Knight. Or Romeo, who falls in love with Juliet. All stories have a conflict or a challenge. So, if you want to persuade your audience, share your struggles, share your pain, challenge yourself to be vulnerable. Shall we get back to that cliffhanger? Yes, While I walked near the stage, I could hear the presenter already sharing my name. And I thought I was getting sick. And while I moved through the curtains and I saw this big room with 800 people, I blacked out. I did not have any clue what I wanted to share, why I wanted it to share. It really felt horrible. It felt basically like dying on stage. But I realize now, looking back, the mistakes I made. The first mistake I made is that I did not connect thoroughly with my message. I start prepping my presentation in PowerPoint. Don't get me wrong, PowerPoint can be a very strong tool, but inspiration isn't born in PowerPoint. Emotional engagement is not founded in PowerPoint. Speaking from the heart does. The second mistake I made is that I did not connect it with myself. I was forcing against the nerves instead of accepting them. And adding those two mistakes, I did not connect with the audience as well. I placed a dot in the end of the room, and I was focusing on that dot so I would not die. And probably you feel that I'm doing this right now, that I'm not really connecting with all of you. And that's true, because I'm not connecting at all. It sounds really like a silly metaphor, right? That if I want to search something in Google, I need to go online first. If I don't have any connection, I don't get any results. Well, we people work the same. So, go online first. Go online. Because the power lies in connecting in 3 different levels. Connect with yourself, connect with the audience, and connect with your message. But I'm happy that I made these mistakes, because these mistakes give me the energy that I really wanted to learn about this topic about public speaking. And those mistakes led to the podcast, and the podcast led to meeting more than 50 brilliant experts. And those interviews led to my final test, delivering this TED Talk in front of you right now. I really thoroughly believe that we all have a story worth telling. We all have an idea worth spreading. And I realize now that it's my drive to help and inspire others finding their own voice. And even if you don't give presentations in your professional life, that doesn't matter. See this as a metaphor for conversations you have every day. The story you tell at a dinner table. The information you share at a conference call. That important lesson you want to share to someone important. Or as simply as saying to your husband or wife, I love you. Thank you.